welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to do a review about the book My Policeman by Bethan. This book I read probably like a month ago and I was just so obsessed with it that I felt like I had to do a review, even though I've like never done a book review before. But I really wanted to do one about this one because I loved it so much. First of all, I really want to appreciate the cover. It's like this typical Brighton image with like the pier in the background. Also these houses. I want to live in a house like this one day. So I read this book because it was recommended by the god of booktube, Jack Edwards himself. I love his videos so much. He did a video where he read books that Harry Styles recommended, and this was one of them. And he like you know, he gave it like a quick review, and I was so interested, and then I ordered it and it completely exceeded my expectations. I was just in love with this book and I still am, basically. Like, I stayed up until like 1 o'clock in the morning to read this, and I'm not someone to stay up so late, and I also woke up very late, and there were definitely some exams that I didn't study that much for because I was reading this book. So basically the book is set in Brighton in the 1950s, and this also made it so much more interesting to me because my aunt lives in Brighton and I love that town so much. I would really love to live there one day. It's just so vibrant, and I have many great memories from there. I just love the vibe of it, and also this like vintage vibe, which makes it feel like, you know, I'm watching the like young adult period of my grandparents. Like, it's a kind of like you know, when your grandparents show you these old pictures and you can just like sense the whole vibe being so much different, and this book really made me feel like I was actually there. The writing style is so good. You know, there are these authors who write in like a very kind of factual way, like they kind of write down what's happening but they don't really use many metaphors and stuff. And there are the authors who are like very poetic. I feel like Bethan is very good at expressing feelings and completely translating every emotion in that scene to you. Like when the characters fell in love, I could like exactly feel what they were feeling. Just every feeling was so perfectly described, and also like the locations and just the whole vibe of the scene was just so perfectly described. And she actually uses some quite interesting metaphors that I wouldn't have thought of by myself. Like, I wouldn't have compared those two things together, but they worked so well together. Like, for example, there was a funny one. There was one regarding one of the characters' mothers, and it was like she had her bosom displayed like a massive meringue or something like that in like a bakery window. I thought that was like very funny, and you know, it's like so fitting, but you wouldn't think of it usually. So yeah, overall like very evocative writing style. The characters, actually I read some comments saying that the characters weren't that well developed, like the locations and like the whole environment was like very well detailed, but the characters weren't that much. And actually I felt differently. I thought that even though she didn't necessarily describe the characters in such detail maybe, but just from the way they talked and like the information that we got about them, like their interests and their like clothing style, I felt like I knew all of the characters personally. I completely got the whole atmosphere and energy that character would exude to you. So to talk about the characters a little bit without going into spoilers, first of all, the book begins with Marion. It's actually very interesting in this book that we get like there are 3 main characters and we get the points of views of 2 of them. One of them is like the main storyteller. Like, she's writing this manuscript for herself, and or not for herself, but she's writing it like describing what happened in her life. And then there's the other character whose diary we get to see. And Marion is the first person who we start with. She's writing the manuscript, or basically it's a letter to one of the other characters, Patrick. And we like to see Patrick's diary, like to see his point of view as well. Marion's letter basically starts in 1999. I think like that's when she writes it, when they are already in their like 60s, or Patrick in his 70s, and she's basically writing this letter to tell Patrick, and I guess Tom as well, who's the third main character, about how she lived this story that involved all three of them. And then like Patrick's diary is set when the story actually takes place, because you know, those were his like we get to see what he felt day to day, or like we get to read it. What I found very great was that it was like very evident, like you could tell who was actually writing it. I don't know how authors do that, like the writing styles, I feel like, and the way of thinking for both characters, Marion and Patrick, were like very different, and we could very clearly tell who was actually talking, but it was separated anyway, so you could tell at first like it wasn't very clear that it was Patrick taking over. But yeah, it was very evident to me when his part started that it wasn't Marion anymore. The story starts with Marion, who is a young teenage girl when this whole story starts, and she falls in love with the brother of her best friend Sylvie, and this brother is Tom. Basically Marion is like conservative and modest, and she's a little bit awkward as well, as much as I could tell, but basically she means well. However, she does make some bad decisions later, and for the spoiled version there I will talk about the spoilers later. But yeah, she ends up being a school teacher, and yeah, they get married later on with Tom. I hope that's not a spoiler, I don't think so. Then we have Tom, who is Sylvie's, Marion's best friend's brother, and he gets to know Marion by teaching her how to swim, obviously before they have met, because when the two girls were together at Sylvie's house, then obviously Marion met Tom before, but they properly get to know each other when Tom tries to teach Marion to swim. Later he becomes a policeman, so basically he's who that title refers to, and yeah, they get married, but it isn't like very peaceful, because then comes Patrick, who is this older man, well, not much older, but I don't know, maybe like 10 years older. That might be a lot older, I don't know. But he's like a museum curator, I think. He works in a museum, that's for sure, and he's like very sophisticated, like gentlemanlike and artistic, and basically Tom and Patrick fall in love as well. Actually they're already in love before Patrick and Marion get married. Is this a spoiler? I don't think so. I think this is written on the back of the book anyway. So yeah, it's basically a love triangle situation, and it's very tragic. Like, the end might get you crying. I was crying, so, and I am not someone to cry about books, like I find that difficult, but even I cried. So okay, so I think that's all for the non-spoilers section. Now we're going to talk about actual things that happened, because I'm scared that I will mention something that I shouldn't. So if you haven't read it before and you don't want to hear the spoilers, then maybe come back once you've read it. So I thought that we could like talk about the characters again, but like in more detail, and relating to events that are like, you know, couldn't mention before. So basically at first I really liked Marion. I heard that a lot of people thought this way. Like, I was actually I could really relate to her and like her experiences, and I was actually really rooting for her and Tom to be together and like be happy. But when like Patrick came, like I just saw that they had so much more chemistry with Tom, and I really wanted them to be together. But like obviously that didn't make me dislike Marion, because like that's not her fault. What made me start to dislike her is me being a very sensitive person. When she went to the school, and I think she maybe like hit a child or something, she was like rude to the children, and that just immediately made me very mad at her. I would drop Marion in the sea and let her drown there, because I don't think she actually learned to swim in the end, did she? So I was just like, okay, drop her into the sea and let her struggle. Because I just hate it when people are like rude to children. I know that it was like the norm back then, but I don't know, I'm very sensitive, and it was just like that was a very big negative point in my eyes. And obviously the letter that she later wrote, that just buried her in my eyes. Obviously it's also kind of understandable, her situation, because she was cheated on and I hate cheating, but considering the whole situation, like Tom and Patrick like couldn't have been together anyway because of the conservative values back then, so there wasn't really much option. And obviously Tom didn't want to be suspicious that he wasn't married, and also like a lot of his colleagues mentioned to him that he should like make a woman a respectable policeman's wife or something like that. So I kind of understand. The thing with this book is that all of the characters made mistakes, but I kind of understand all of them, because it's basically the society's fault and this whole situation's fault that they made these mistakes, and I don't know what else they could have really done. But what made Marianne seem better at the end was how she basically somehow arranged Patrick to stay with them. I don't know what happened there. It was weird that there was like 40 years that was missing. Like we didn't know anything about those 40 years that happened from Patrick going to prison to the present day. But it was nice of her to bring Patrick to their home, and obviously she was thinking of Tom and Patrick, because like why would have it been good for her? And it was very nice of her to like write the letter, and basically she kind of said sorry, I guess, and it looked like she really regretted what she did. It doesn't change the fact that she did it, but it's like nice that she actually wrote the letter. So Tom, I feel like I kind of liked him, like he was like a nice guy, I guess, but he was basically the one who played with both Marianne and Patrick, because he kind of like, he was with them like at the same time. I mean, not kind of, he was like him and Patrick were already in like a serious relationship when Tom decided that he would still marry Marianne, and just asking Patrick to share him was very terrible. And he didn't even ask Marianne, he just like assumed that she would have to share him. Basically he was the one who ruined the whole thing. But again, society was the one. Like he probably didn't mean to hurt anyone, and he didn't know what to do in the situation, which is understandable, but like he did make this big mistake of still marrying Marianne. What I was angry at him about was how like when Patrick ended up staying with Marianne and Tom in the end, like when they were older, like he didn't even look at Patrick. Like I understand that it must really hurt to see a loved one be in that state, because like, you know, Patrick got a stroke and he couldn't really talk and anything, and it must really hurt to see someone like that. But just imagine what it must be like for the person who's in that situation. Like just imagine you are there and they can't even look at you, like he wouldn't even go and say hello. So that was kind of like immature of him, but I was glad that in the end Marianne managed to convince Tom to read her letter to Patrick, and I hope that maybe, even though Patrick couldn't really say anything, maybe he magically could, or like, you know, it was one of these cliches when he actually managed to say something. But at least I hope that Tom said something to Patrick, like maybe I love you or something, or sorry. But it also could be that Tom couldn't even look at Patrick because he felt such strong regret. Like I think he said something like Patrick needed me like 30 years ago or something like that. He said that to Marianne, and maybe he just really regretted not being there for him, and like not even visiting Patrick in the prison, and not helping him after he got out of the prison, which we don't know what happened then, but I suppose he didn't help him. And maybe he was like just so mad at himself, and he just like couldn't even look at Patrick because he was so ashamed of himself. So then we have Patrick. Patrick was my favorite character. I really loved him, and even though it was very terrible of him to be with Tom even once he was married, because just think of poor Marianne, like poor thing. Like I would hate to be cheated on. Like that's the worst. Like just imagine how it must feel to be deceived, and just like it's just terrible. But also like how could Tom invite him to their wedding? And like I don't know, Tom is very weird. but again, like, what could he do? And also, like, poor Patrick, like, he lost his boyfriend for like 8 years, I think. He was like together with Michael for like 8 years, I think, and after that he just like must have been so lonely, and I kind of can't blame him that he found someone who he really loved and obviously didn't want to just like say goodbye to him and give up on him. And like the whole Michael situation, that must have been so traumatic, because like he could have stayed with Michael just happily ever after if it wasn't for the society back then, and if it was legal to actually be gay. Like, poor Michael and poor Patrick, like seriously, that was just so sad, that part. And also I loved how we could see like the whole gay experience through Patrick's eyes back then, like with the bars and stuff, and like the, you know, just his feelings, and how he had to like keep everything so in secret. Obviously it wasn't good to see, as in it was very sad, but you know, it was interesting. But yeah, I really loved his character because of like him being so like sophisticated and like gentlemanlike and with great manners. He was like interested in art and like classical music and literature, cooking, all kinds of stuff. And also the way he expressed himself, or how bethan made him express himself, was just so, again, it just like showed how sophisticated he was and well read. I love the whole like art project lie, when he just found this way to convince Tom to get to know him. Like, that was so cute. Obviously it's not good to lie, but that was so cute of him. If we would have seen Tom's perspective, then he might have already liked Patrick from the day he saw him, but just like was too awkward to like actually ask him to meet again. But actually I'm glad that we didn't see Tom's perspective, because this way he remained kind of mysterious. Like, he was the love interest of both other characters, so it was kind of nice that he stayed mysterious. And I would have liked to see his perspective, is that if that meant that we got like an extra 50 or 100 pages to the book. But if it was to be the same length but divided differently, then I would have said to keep it this way. And yeah, just like Patrick was so generous. Like, he always made everything perfect for when Tom was coming over. Like, he cleaned and like cooked something very special and like dressed up nicely. He like gifted clothes to Tom and invited him to like all kinds of art shows and like the theater and opera and stuff, and even took Marion with him. Like, it was so nice when they all went to the museum together. It must have been very awkward, but also I feel like Patrick made it not seem awkward at all, because apparently he was very good at keeping a conversation, or like that's what came off for me. Like, he actually got along with Marion more than Marion did with Tom, I guess, because I don't think Tom was that interested in Marion at all, and Patrick could at least like be interested in her as a person. Maybe I might sense that in a wrong way. Maybe he was just better at making conversations with people, but I feel like even they had more chemistry than Tom and Marion. And I love the way that falling in love was written. Like, with Marion we had this like genuinely teenage experience, because she was a teenager when she fell in love with Tom, and then Patrick was like 34 years old when he fell in love with Tom. But like, he literally described himself getting back into that teenager state, and he was just like absolutely infatuated. And like the way he transformed back into like a child, like there was a scene where he was like skipping along the seafront or something like that, and like he just saw the beauty and like everything at that time, like the pavilion I think he mentioned, and how he said like when Tom agreed to the arts project, and all day he was just thinking about Tom saying yes to it, and thinking about Tom all the time, and just like following him in the town. I feel like that was so cute, and he really just turned into a teenager again, which I was so happy for, because poor thing really deserved to feel just like this infatuation again, because he went through a lot of things. And I just love how he taught Tom about like art, and I love when they like went through the museum and like talked about it. When there was this like scene where I keep saying scene, but I don't think that's the correct word. Anyway, I'm still going to say it because I don't know what else to say. But when like Tom said that he doesn't really understand art or something, he doesn't know much about it, and then Patrick said that you just have to feel it, and that was so cute. And also when they went hiking, and there was this line, "For a policeman you're very romantic," and then Tom said, "For an artist, you're very afraid." That was so cute. That was one of my favorite quotes. And let me mention just briefly that when Tom spent the night at Patrick's, like, that was steamy. And I actually felt like I was there, like I was one of them in the situation. Like, the feelings were just described so perfectly, and I literally felt this, you know, when you have this like internal feeling, like these butterflies in your stomach, or like your heart is like beating faster. Like, I literally felt that. And then when Patrick said like, "You're going to be a perfect portrait," then I also loved the, I mean, I hated that scene where Patrick got beaten in the prison, but I loved the way he like, even despite being just bullied again for basically loving someone, he was just still saying over and over again he will always love him. That was just so adorable, and literally my heart broke for him at that point. I was crying so hard when that happened. I'm smiling now, but I was really crying for him. I really liked him so much, and he deserves so much better. I hope that after he got out of prison he managed to find happiness, because we actually don't know. All we know was that he had a stroke later, but I hope that between the prison years and until he got a stroke he was happy. I really hope. And then for the other characters, I feel like all of these scenes involve Patrick because he's just my favorite. But for other scenes that I liked, or like moments that I liked, was when Tom was teaching Marion how to swim, and she accidentally kicked him in the but that was very funny, and just like the awkwardness between them was like very funny at first. Then it got kind of like cringe and like very uncomfortable more like later on, but at first it was like cute and like funny, the awkwardness between them. I also loved when like Sylvie faked her pregnancy, or like she lied that she was pregnant to get Roy to marry her, and then when like Marion and Sylvie went to the room and she just like confessed like it was all a lie, I just wanted him to marry me, and they just like hysterically laughed. Like, I feel like that was such a lovely like best friend moment. It's so cool that they've remained friends for so long, and I'm very happy for them. And just like the girlfriend moment, because there were times when I felt that they weren't actually that close. It was just like, you know, they were there for each other, but they didn't understand each other that much. But there were these scenes like this that like really proved that they are just such great friends. I really loved Marion's relationship with Julia. Actually, I hated Marion's attitude towards Julia. Like, when she learned that Julia was a lesbian, or at least bisexual, I don't know if that was like specified or obvious, but that she also liked women to some extent, and she just like completely left her there. Like, she literally only had Julie as a friend next to Sylvie. Like, she had like 2 friends and she still pushed that one away. Like, girl, seriously. But it was great that they joined this activist group. I think it was like against like nuclear weapons, and like maybe it was like about like more like forward-thinking ideologies as well. I can't completely remember that, but it was great that they joined this group together, and I hope that Marion kept on going even after she fell out with Julia. But yeah, and for the ending, it was kind of like oddly satisfying. Like, it was very tragic, but I like that we still got this like glimmer of hope at the end, because like we don't really know what happened afterwards. Like, Marion did leave, but did she come back and like see how Patrick and Tom were doing? Like, did Patrick actually die then, or like did he still have some time alive, or did he actually manage to say something, even just like a sentence or something? Did Tom actually talk to Patrick, and not just what Marion left to read for him, but like his own words? And I just like it when books have these open endings, because sometimes I'm just like, oh, I wish it didn't happen that way. But if it's like left open, you can kind of just like create your own ending to it, and like nothing's set in stone, so I like those endings a lot. And then let's talk about it becoming a film. Like, I actually didn't check the cast before I started reading this. I knew that it was going to be a film because it literally has it on the front, that it's soon going to be a major film or something. I knew that Harry Styles is going to be in it, but despite that I still didn't imagine Tom as Harry Styles. I was just like going off the character descriptions and how I thought he would look like based on my idea of him, and the same goes for the other two characters, except that I didn't know who was going to play them. But I actually prefer it this way, and the characters, like the actors, ended up looking completely different to how I'd imagined them. I feel like Harry still suits my way of imagining Tom the most. Maybe that's because I already knew that he was going to play Tom, but even he is different to how I would have naturally imagined him. But like then comes Marion and Emma. Like I feel like they are like in the middle kind of, and I imagine Patrick to be completely different. Just like looks wise, obviously I don't know how the actor is going to bring Patrick to life. He might be able to completely bring the entire vibe of Patrick and give back the same energy that I imagined for him. But looks wise, all of them look very different to how I actually imagined the characters. But I am very excited for the film, and I think it's coming out this year, so we don't have to wait too long, maybe a few months. So I am very excited, and if it does come out we can definitely talk about it. And if you want to talk about the book a bit more, then please message me on Instagram, because I would love to talk about this book forever. I love it so much. It's literally my favorite book next to The Picture of Dorian Gray, probably. That's a very interesting pairing, but I love that a lot as well. And yeah, this is one of my favorites, and I'm probably going to reread it just after this video. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this review, and I hope it wasn't too all over the place, because I have never done a book review before. But I hope that it was enjoyable, and I mentioned some parts that you liked as well, or if I didn't, then please mention them to me. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Bye bye!